Today about enhancing your digital accessibility with the use of HTML templates. I'm at Community College of Denver. I'm the coordinator of instructional design and compliance, as well as an adjunct instructor for two IT courses. So the reason I'm talking about this today is that even though we're using D2L, I feel like these processes and tools are things that can translate over to other platforms like Schoology or Canvas or other LMSs that you may be using. So while some of the principles may not be exactly the same in terms of where to click. I'm hoping that the ideas you'll learn from this will give you some ideas in your LMS. And I'm somewhat familiar with Canvas, so if you have questions about how you would go about that at your institution, feel free to reach out to me after this session and I'll be happy to collaborate. So with that, I'm going to pull up one of my course shells in D2L. And for those of you that are on D2L, this will probably look very familiar to you, especially those that are at a triple CS college here in Colorado. Um, so what I'm gonna do is, and again, in D2L, I'm gonna go to upload create. And again, I'm moving a little bit faster than I probably would just because I want to make sure I cover everything. And what we're gonna do is create a file. Now, and again, there should be an equivalent option in other LMSs, but what we've set up in our instance of D2L is a shared folder where we have document templates. And if I click on this menu here, we have a whole list of HTML templates that on one level we built for digital accessibility and inclusion and things like that. That as we get into them, you'll see the coloring and the styles and tables and things like that have been pre-built for accessibility. But the other piece of that is that we have made them made them branded for our institution, which again, if you're interested in that, I'm happy to meet with you, any of you offline, just to give you the basics of how to do that on the back end of the HTML. But right now, I'm going to pull up our HTML syllabus because this is a good example of where you can see the different styles and colors and fonts and headings and things like that, and how we have placeholders for tables. These tables are fully dynamic and customizable. We also have a tool called Simple Syllabus, where a lot of the language is baked in, but HTML templates, I feel like, are kind of nice because they do give you a framework if you're new and just needing to plug things in. But all of this text is editable. So depending on your savviness with HTML and how much you want to customize, you can completely do that with tables and images and things, keeping in mind that when you design templates, or if you're an instructor that has been handed them, it's kind of like what we talk about in digital accessibility for Word documents. you really want to be sticking to your styles rather than in HTML parlance, what we call inline style, which is these inline formatting properties over here for fonts and size and colors. But you really want to stick with the styles over here because these have been pre-built for accessibility with contrast, sizing, font shape, things like that. And again, there's variations in that, and I don't want to go too into the weeds on this training, but you can use a few different sans serif fonts, for example, to get your content highly accessible, but also have some variation. So that's just a little bit about that. For those of you using other systems, these principles are fairly agnostic to what platform you're using. So Mouse, are there any questions or comments so far in the chat as we're going along?
As of now, the chat is clear.
Okay, great. And again, feel free to unmute yourself. And I'm actually low vision, so I can't see any hands raised. So if you want to just shout out or mouse if somebody has a hand up, feel free to chime in and let me know. Uh, so, okay. So moving on. So that's a little bit about the general styles in here. Um, the other thing I want to talk about is the the package of templates, if you will. And this is where my work as an instructional designer comes in, specifically for online courses or hybrid or async, however your institution calls them. This structure, as you can see here, not only has templates, but it also gives you a flow to set up pages that can easily move students through your online or hybrid courses that you want to keep slick and visually interesting, but also have that underlying structure of recommendations that we get from Quality Matters and other entities about good online course design. And with that said, one of the ones that I want to show you is going to be the module introduction or and that sorry, this one's actually the course introduction, and this is a good place where outside of your syllabus that maybe has a little brief description, this is where you can give students a good welcome to the class. And again, these are all fully editable. And then what I like about the D2L package is that not only did we brand them, but when we initially got them from D2L, they did have like a set of styles and images as well as training. So if you actually read the templates, if you're a D2L user, you'll find that it gives you little tips and tricks within each page. So for example, if you want to change the background for this course introduction, you're able to do that and it explains how and what size, etc. Another one I want to highlight is how to use the module introduction because again, as an instructional designer, this is one of my pet peeves of coming into an online class and having no kind of module introduction. What are we doing this week? What learning outcomes are you expected to master? And in this template, it calls them objectives. But again, these templates are not only accessible, but they're instructive. So they're even delving into, how do you use blooms and how do you um keep them, keep your using the SMART goals and things like that. So again, as you're using templates, it's good to really read the materials and um, use appropriate blooms, for example, and things like that. So I always like to have this mm, template at the beginning of all online modules because this gives your students a roadmap of what's happening in the week. It can even be useful in a face-to-face course. Let's say a student is out for the Monday Wednesday session and they want to know what to expect. Again, this is going to help them do that. Um, another great tool that I like to use in here, another template that is handy is the basic page, because again, think of these like if any of you are English instructors or deal with writing papers, think of these as like your building blocks, if you will. Like there's the intro templates, there's these body templates that have various levels of styling. So this basic page with the banner is nice for that because it gives you sample headings that you can, for example, highlight a word and then actually replace. And as you can see, it uh, keeps that style. So the other beauty of these is that you don't actually have to know anything about HTML to make these look really sharp and professional and consistent. The thing is just highlighting the words and making sure that you're not backspacing too far. And again, this one also has instruction in it, so it's useful. Um, and then again, you can style within these. You just want to be careful that you're not relying on the inline styles on the right side, but actually styling with heading 1, heading 2, uh, paragraph. That's going to be the equivalent to normal. And in Word, that's this paragraph text right here that you see. So just becoming familiar and effective users of those styles. And then what we'll look at is the elements page. And again, I'll go ahead and replace what we have here. Um, So this page is nice because if you're the type of designer where you like to have little templates to pick and choose within a file, this template is great for that because this has, again, a bunch of styles and call out boxes and blocks and tables and things like that where you don't have to know any code. You literally just have to copy in between the lines. So you would place your cursor at the end of the start copy and then go all the way down to the end copy, copy that over to your new file, paste it in there, delete out placeholder text. So you can see we have lots of cute little lists and block quotes. These are great in a lot of classes where you like have humanities or literature, things like that. We have the Jumbotron, which is nice, different call outs, things like that. Um, so different styles, and again, you can literally and then I actually learned this from one of my colleagues that's also a learning designer, is what some people like to do is, like me, I like to grab these elements in one tab and then paste it onto a page open in another tab, because you can do that right in your browser, have two windows open. But what his strategy is to have this template open and subtract everything around what you want. So you would delete out everything above the table and below the table and then just fill in around that. But again, that's kind of up to you how you would want to design your files. So that's a little bit about elements. And again, I'm happy to chat with any designers or instructors who might be at schools using other LMSs and having ways of doing this and those. But I would hope and suspect that others like Canvas maybe have these packages that you can download. Um, so the next one I want to talk about is images. And this one again is it's more of like a stencil or a place where you can go and grab things and put them in other files uh or subtract around what you don't want. So this one is nice because it gives you files or images with different alignments, and then you can have full alignment. Down here at the bottom, you can have left, right, and again, you can read the directions in these. The thing you want to remember, of course, is in any time that you have an image like this, is to click on image options and to make sure that you're having uh, an alt text description. And if you have a decorative image that students, it doesn't matter if they can't see it, you want to check that box. But if it is an instructional image, make sure that you're putting your alt text into that box. And again, I could give you guys a whole lecture on alt text, but that's not the goal of this training. So feel free to reach out on that one. Um, so that's a little bit about what you do with the image template. And so now, um, it looks like Mouse, we have some people in the lobby. Um,
Yeah,
so
Jennifer, I'm so sorry. Mouse crashed and I do not have co-host privilege, so I cannot let anybody in. I'm so sorry about that.
no, that's okay. I'll see if I can. All right, I'm just gonna admit all here. Okay. All right, thank you all to those who just joined us. I understand that we've been having some technical issues today, so apologies for that, but thank you for attending and having patience. So what we're talking about is this list of HTML templates that you see here. And at my school, I'm using D2L. So I specific to those templates, but again, this is something that you could potentially use at any school using Canvas, etc. So like I said, we've been chatting about images. Now we're going to talk a little bit about videos. And this is one that is really handy if you want to jazz up video lectures. So we always like to recommend in our asynchronous courses that instructors do a video welcome. So this is just a cool little way of giving it this jazzy little border, but at the same time at the bottom you can make it more robust and accessible by providing alternate links down here to a direct link. I also recommend in true digital accessibility, it's also good to have video transcripts down here as well. So this template gives you a good way of doing that. The other thing that you have in this one is that it gives you step-by-step directions of how to do this. So depending on what video platform you use, it'll walk you through. You can also use embed codes. If you're really tech savvy down here, you'll see that we have um, you can see you can jump into the HTML and update the code within the iframe, and we won't get into that today because that's very niche, but that is something you can do. So the last thing I want to show you real quick before I demo a big why of why we do these templates is that at the end of each module, it's always good to, from an instructional design perspective, have your course have or have each module have its own conclusion. So in that list, there's also a conclusion module, and the Zoom is being a little twitchy, but long story short, there is also a template that you can use to close out your module and prep your students for the next one. And as you can see here, we have our colors and branding along with these templates. So what I did when I got this package from D2L's website is I went in and updated the color styles, put in our footers, borders, things like that. So that's another way that you can use the templates, and it's got nice little footers to where you could work with your marketing team to put in logos and get the colors and things like that. But again, they do have generic styles as well, that if you don't want to get that in depth with tweaking the HTML and the CSS. You don't feel obligated, but just know that that option is there. So for now, I'm going to cancel out of this because this is one of my live classes and I don't want to disrupt anything. But what I'm going to do is show you one of the modules that has the has syllabus in it. And let's see here. And what I'll do is actually go down to one that I'm still working on so that way students don't get messed up. Um, so the real reason, and again, keep in mind I'm building this out. But as you can see here, I have the template placeholder. So the real reason, and again, those of you that are using other LMSs like Canvas, etc., hopefully your institution has a built-in reader like ReadSpeaker or Blackboard Ally or some sort of integration. But this tool will allow you to have it read aloud to students. And I'm not sure if it shared my audio in Zoom, but what you will see is if I click play, it'll highlight the words.
This module introduction page features a prominent banner image across the top and a numbered list below. This page can easily accommodate.
So, hopefully you could hear that, but if not, just know that there is a text-to-speech voice also reading that out loud as it's highlighting it and going through the page. So the moral of the story here in this presentation is the more that you can move your content away from Word docs, from PowerPoints, PDFs, and things like that, the more universally designed they're going to be for a wide range of students, because now they don't necessarily have to go and get special screen readers or get a bunch of accommodations if they're still leery of that whole process coming out of high school. I know I've met a lot of students in that scenario. They can have this tool read aloud for them and not have to feel pressured. It also helps English language learners, students that are on the go. They can pull this up on a mobile device and listen to it. You know, we have a big light rail system here, so this gives students to the ability to listen to these pages. So yeah, so the more that you can design in HTML, it's just going to give students more flexibility in how they digest that information and what processes will work uh, best for them. And again, this is the ReadSpeaker tool. Some of you might have Blackboard Ally. Another tool that we're using that I might show you all next year if you come back is one called UJA Panorama. And that one is also nice because, again, that students can take these files and in this accessibility menu up here, have it read in various formats. And again, because I'm an instructor, I see accessibility report, which is a whole other training for you all. But if you have a tool like this, I always encourage instructors to tell their students about it, because again, they can easily get these HTML files to convert to other files in accessible formats that meet their needs. And especially like the audio podcasts and Braille formats can be a good way for not only students who are blind that need it accessible on the fly, but I always like to use the example of, the busy single mom running around can turn this file into an MP3 very easily, whereas processing a Word document or a PDF or a PowerPoint to audio can be a lot more messy. And those of you that work in accessibility, I'm sure can attest to how much cleaner that comes through when it's in HTML. And then the other thing is language translation. So again, students needing these HTML files translated. Unfortunately, our school lost a lot of ESL funding and support, so students are in a way on their own with that. So having this ability to translate on the fly is helpful for them. And HTML can just help with that conversion process more so than other formats. So that's we're just about almost at time, or our original time, I should say, but I do want to leave plenty of time for questions or comments. And if we do have time to get a little more in depth, we can. So at this point, are there questions or thoughts about how you can use these tools? Can folks throw out there what LMS you're using at your institution?
I know we're D2L at Front Range.
Oh, yes, definitely. Anybody else on here using Canvas or Schoology or something like that? Okay. Are there any other general questions about how to use templates or how you might incorporate these into your classes? Are there any other learning design people on this group, or are you all instructors?
I'm an instructional designer and digital accessibility specialist.
Oh, okay, cool. That's awesome. I'm glad to see a fellow colleague on here.
Yeah. I don't
Nice.
know if this question was answered, Jennifer, but somebody was asking if Ebony, I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, if there is a site to retrieve those templates, where we can get more info should we like to practice.
Oh, yeah. So if you are on D2L, it's if you just go onto D2L's Brightspace page, you can search accessible HTML templates. Now, this is something where you do need to work with your learning designers or your teaching learning centers at your institution and have your LMS admin set them up initially. But if you're at one of the Colorado community colleges, all of the LMS admins have access to these. And again, feel free to reach out after this and I can collaborate with you. Are there any other questions in the chat? Because like I said, I can't see them
There was,
very well with this setup.
yeah, there wasn't a question, but Melanie is chiming in that she's actually the lead for instructional technology specialist at Portland Community College, and they also use D2L and have moved to use a Panorama already.
Oh, good. Do you want to share a little bit about how you're liking that panorama?
Hi, Jennifer. It's Melanie.
Hi.
Uh, I guess there's something that we encounter lately was like when we tried to update the page, somehow the image was stored in Yuja without informing us. So anyway, so that's we already notified them and hopefully that will be fixed soon. So that's the reason, the latest one that we're encountering. Just this certain thing that is still not working quite right.
Right, right. Yeah, I know. We're
Hmm.
still piloting it right now and
Ah,
running into these little nuances too.
hmm.
So
We
I'll,
actually
I'll
have a user group as well. So if you wanna let me know your email address, I can let you know. We started building a kind of like a user group um for each panorama to learn from each other from different school. So
Oh, great. Excellent. That's awesome. Yeah, so with that said, does somebody want to write my email address in the chat here and then all of you can type it out? Is there someone available to do
Yeah,
that?
I'll do it for you, and I can actually, I know your email, so I can just pull it off of mine.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So you made it back on. I'm glad to see.
Yeah, I'm back.
Miles,
And
are
Yay.
you in the ELCC account?
Yes.
I I am, but I think
Okay,
Brandon is or was as well. I'm still
let me give you
myself.
the host privilege again.
Okay, thank you. And I'll chime in while I'm getting this email. We have also moved to use Panorama at Front Range Community College, and we're actually kind of in cahoots with CCCS. And for the most part, I really like what Panorama offers, especially for some of the instructors that are really kind of at entry level with accessibility. I think there's some fine tuning that needs to go on um, with Panorama, some of it at the institutional level. Like for me, we're trying to get font size up to 19, and Panorama will pass anything at 12. And I think I've even seen font size 10 pass and not get counted as a point. So again, I think it's great for entry level, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done with it.
Oh, yeah, no, I'd be happy to chat with you more about that because I've actually run into that issue as well, where it's not being rigorous enough and we need to flag things differently and have them tweak their algorithms. So,
Yep.
yeah. But yeah, so that's a fair warning that I know this is about HTML templates, but any of you working on accessibility and using any kind of AI tools like Panorama or even built-in Microsoft checkers and D2L or Canvas checkers, the the AI can only go so far and it's only like Mouse said, it's as only good as the humans that set it and programmed it. So that's where it's good to still be familiar with what the guidelines are for colors, for font size, things like that. So,
Yep.
any
And
other
one, one of the,
comments?
one of the other big ones that I see all the time is that again, at our setting, our default link uh, insert will not underline a link. So I find myself going through courses and just underlining link after link after link, or hyperlinks is what I'm talking about, but making sure that they're all underlined because the D2L itself doesn't do it, and Panorama isn't checking for it, so it also gets passed as acceptable.
Right, right. No, that's a good point. I should go through. I wonder, I should look and see if there's a way to fix that in the CSS that is kind of frustrating, yeah. So, but yeah, good to know. Any other thoughts in the chat or anybody else? How many
I have a
people are
question.
here?
We're at total at 10. Melanie has sent her email address. If you'd like, I could just forward that to you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yep. And then she also said, Melanie, last week we discovered an issue with Yuja and Creator Plus. And not sure if any of us are using that.
Yeah, I don't think I've used that. What is that, Melanie?
So Creator Plus is like the element that it's that you can create using the HTML editor inside the content, but it only works inside the content area. So there's certain things that you can create, kind of like the layout or different tabs, without having to use the CSS part.
Oh, good, gotcha. Is that free?
I'm not sure. Might
And
not.
what was the name? Can you drop that in the chat?
Yeah, it's called Creator Plus. So it's in D2L itself. So it's part of D2L product.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll
Mhm.
see if we have that
Okay.
available to us. Thank you.
Hi, Jennifer. I have a quick question. This is Jordan from Red Rocks.
Hey, how's
And
it going?
good, thanks. I've noticed some D2L HTML pages I've encountered have been designed with a like tab or tabular structure. Um,
Uh-huh.
and if you're familiar with those, I was wondering how, if you may know, how accessible are those ways of navigating on HTML templates, and if they're good or limited.
So basically the rule of thumb with tabs or columns, if you will, like newspapers, is it goes back to how it's designed in the code, and because what some designers do to visually make it look that way is they use invisible tables. But if you're using column codes and things like that, and I don't want to get too into the weeds, but basically if you're setting it up either in Word or in HTML as a column, and a column breaks that direct the screen reader to wrap around, that is an appropriate use of columns rather than just putting stuff in an invisible 2-column or 3-column table, say, because for screen reader users, tables are only supposed to be for tabular information where you have like the A2 coordinate, like the date and whatever that specific row is, and the description for that week. So does that answer that question?
Yeah, I think it does. I think I've also noticed when pages are built with tabs, it tends to read through one full tab before proceeding to the next tab when testing with screen readers.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always apparent if it's easily navigable, like to jump from one tab to another, without having to start over. I think I need to test more with that.
Right. Well, and the thing too is when you are in a table, you want to use your Alt Control arrow keys, because those are, with a screen reader, those are what's gonna jump up and down from cell to cell or left to right, respectively. So, and again, I'm happy to meet with you and we can play around with that. If you have some use cases or examples, feel free to send them. Any other questions? Good discussion.
Yeah, Melanie also put in the chat for, I think it was Ebony who was asking earlier. Melanie searched and found the D2L release in March of this year with the information on the templates, and that link is in the chat. So she's checking it out now.
Oh, good. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I feel like when there's technical difficulties like this, is good for all of us to work collaboratively on these things. So thank you, everyone. Um,
Great session, Jennifer. Thank you so much. The template that I saw was like, whoa, Mars, this is new. Something different than this one, probably the template 3 that you're using.
yeah, definitely. And of course, there were things in the newer ones that I personally didn't like, that didn't match our branding and things, but that doesn't mean that newer ones are bad. So yeah, thank you. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing for now, and then, like I said, Phil, you do have the email in the chat, right, Mouse?
Yeah, I put your email in the chat, and I just made a joint email I sent to you and Melanie, so we're connected that way as well.
All right, perfect. And Jordan, you know where to find me. So, yeah, so thank you, everyone. Thank you for your patience, and yeah, we'll see each other online soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, everybody. Sorry about the issues, but we got to the end.
Thank
We
you.
can stop the recording now.